Well, hi everybody. It's Joe Chaffee. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. My colleague Joe Rayo wasn't sure if he was going to make it tonight. He's got the weigh in if he does make it. So if I see him pop up, I will bring him into the live stream as ASAP. And we are looking at a rather fascinating situation. I've been looking at weather maps all afternoon long and kind of digesting all of this. It's tough enough when you have to deal with one tropical storm or potentially a hurricane, but to have two tropical storms and potentially two hurricanes, and then add to that the fact that they're both going into the Gulf of Mexico, and then add to that you could see a landfall somewhere along the central Gulf Coast, two landfalling hurricanes in a space of about 48 hours. That is an extremely rare occurrence. In fact, the only one that comes to mind is in North Carolina in 1955. And the 1950s was a decade of East Coast hurricanes. And Hurricane Connie in August, I believe it was in the early part of the month, Connie made landfall in coastal North Carolina, and just less than 4 days later, Hurricane Diane took an almost identical track into coastal North Carolina. And Diana, I mean, between the two of them, but especially Diana, was responsible for very heavy flooding rains in the mid-Atlantic states and in the Northeast. So uh, you don't see this very often. And then I'm thinking, I've been doing this for 40 years, and this is the first time I've seen something like this. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through both storms. We'll talk about them individually. Then we'll also talk about how they may how they relate to each other and what the ramifications of that are. We talked yesterday also about the fact that we I saw some articles with regards to uh, silly stuff about one absorbing the other and becoming a super hurricane. And as we explained yesterday, that's just nonsense. It doesn't really work that way. And if you see stuff like that, it's pretty much just just clickbait. So you see the satellite there to my right, Laura and Marco are obvious. Marco on the left, Laura on the right, and then the space in between, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, and Cuba, waiting for Laura to move along. And of course, what is the fate of Marco and some complications that developed today with regards to the track and that impacted the forecast. Many of you may have seen the Hurricane Center's forecast that they put out this evening, and they emphasized in their headline that that big changes that they had to make in terms of the outlook. And again, I'm going to start getting into that. First off, let's look at what we have with respect to watches and warning watches that are up, and it's Marco would be is going to be a Monday event for the Central Gulf Coast, and Laura will probably be more along the lines of Wednesday, the way it looks. So they won't be making landfall at the same time, but they will be, as I said, 48 hours apart. So we do have hurricane watches up for Southeast Louisiana. There's also flash flood watches up for southeastern Louisiana. The hazard map from the Weather Service hasn't completely updated yet. There's tropical storm watches up to the Alabama-Florida border as well. So we'll make a note of that, and all of this will get filled in. Now that is from Marco. We're going to go down to Florida, where the coastal waters from Boca Raton southward to the Keys and out across all of the Keys, we have tropical storm warnings up. But these are tropical storm watches up. These are for marine conditions. There's a tropical storm watch up for the Keys themselves, as well as areas around Florida Bay. So that doesn't show up on this map because they only lay out one color. And again, the digital forecast map on the Weather Service doesn't update all that quickly. So you give it a check tomorrow, and you'll see all the empty spaces will likely to be filled in. Now, if there are going to be two landfalling tropical systems, obviously, regardless of whether we're talking about wind, rain is going to be a big deal, and the WPC folks showing a fairly large area of 5 to 10 inches of rain from southeast Texas across all of southern Louisiana, and you've got 3 to 5 inch rain amounts going on further inland. So this the with two systems like this, now both of them are going to be moving along, so that'll be a plus. And it would be a different story if one of them were to stall out somewhere once it moves inland and falls apart. We don't really see that happening. There's enough going on in the atmosphere to move weather systems about. So just be aware that rain is going to be probably a very big issue in southeast Louisiana, regardless of what we're dealing with respect to whether they are tropical storms or hurricanes. So let's look at Marco on the latest satellite loop. And we haven't seen really too much change. It's the core of the system is sitting right in the middle of the Yucatan Channel. Now this is a big change from what we saw yesterday, when the forecast logic was that this was going to go over coastal Honduras and Nicaragua, emerge back out in the Caribbean, and then cross the Yucatan Peninsula and come out on the other side. Obviously, those land impacts would certainly impact the strength. They would have lessened the strength, but instead, the system is responding to a very deep trough that's in the Gulf of Mexico, and as a result, the system kind of jogged a bit to the east and started moving almost northward. They're carrying a header of about northwest, but you look on the satellite loop, it almost looks like it's moving maybe just west of due north, and there's a blow up of thunderstorms there right in the middle of the Yucatan Channel. This is a small system. I know when you look at the clouds, it seems like it looks big, but it really isn't. It's a rather small system, so you have to pretty much be inside that core area to experience the serious weather with this. And it's elongated the way it is because, as I said, we have this deep trough in the western Gulf of Mexico. The eastward jog is very important because if it's further east, it'll be a little bit further away from the deep trough and the strong south-southwest winds that are occurring aloft that might shear the system apart. If it's further east, it's in an area where conditions are going to be a bit more favorable. Right now, there's a little bit of shear going on, not enough to cause the structure of the storm to weaken, but enough that intensification is going to occur. It'll probably occur slowly going forward. So we're going to watch this, of course, as it evolves. Again, that stretched out look is because of those strong. It's starting to encounter those stronger winds aloft. Now, the forecast model tracks, the hurricane tracking models. And of course, these are all courtesy of Levi Cowan on tropicaltidbits.com, which is a great website to go to if you want to look at any model that you want. It's there. I'm not going to jump around from model to model. I'm trying to just kind of stay in one place with this, because the variables we all know, models are going to put things in different places. And I don't want forecasting is not necessarily a game where you look for the model that suits your mindset. The point of all of this is to try to get the forecast correct. And this particular set of hurricane tracking models is very, very interesting indeed. These were yesterday's spreads that I have up here. From the Texas coast, the southernmost track was down in southeast Texas. The easternmost track was near Lafayette, Louisiana, and the concentration of tracks over southeast Texas around Houston and Galveston. Now, I'm going to just freshen this up, and we're going to go to today's. And you'll notice a big change in the model tracks, a definite shift further east. And but there's still a bit of a wide spread here. You've got the southernmost model going toward Galveston Bay. You've got the easternmost model taking it to just to the west of Pensacola, Florida, and everybody else, the bulk of the models, taking it on land in southeast Louisiana in about 48 hours. So this would be during Monday afternoon. and into Monday evening, moving through southeast Louisiana. And you'll notice that there's a gradual hook to the left once it moves inland across Louisiana and into North Texas, because of the fact that there's this big upper high that's driving both these storms. We're going to see that upper high strengthen a bit, and that is going to eventually cause Marco to perhaps turn a bit more to the west. If that turn were to come sooner, then you're going to run into a situation where it's going to get involved with this deep upper trough, and there's a chance that you could see the system maybe weaken a bit as it approaches land if it were to do that. So if it winds up staying more on the eastern side of this envelope, it's going to avoid some of that stronger shear that it's going to encounter as it approaches land. The intensity models today also made a bit of a change. There are far many more intensity of the intensity models that have Marco as a Category 1 hurricane. And in fact, two of them bring it to just over Category 2 before landfall. And a few of them bring it up to almost a Category 1, and then there's a few that just kind of leave it as a tropical storm. And of course, after 48 hours, the models will have all of this inland regardless, and you start to see the decline in strength through tropical storm strength and eventually down into tropical depression strength. But the model intensity guidance was much more robust today. So again, and this is because of that eastward jog. And we'll settle this with the Hurricane Center's forecast, which from here they actually do strengthen it to a hurricane overnight and tomorrow morning, and take it north-northwest into southeast Louisiana by Monday afternoon, and then they turn it to the left, weakening it, of course, as it moves inland. Right now, it's at 21.9 north, 85.7 west. Top winds are 65 miles an hour, moving north-northwest at 13. And we will be also going to check the latest advisory. If we're still on live streaming, we'll do the latest advisory toward the end. It'll be coming out at about 8 o'clock. And we'll check out any new reconnaissance aircraft reports. If there are any, we're going to check those out in just a little bit. But I just kind of want to go in a certain order here rather than jump around. Now let's take a look at Laura, Tropical Storm Laura. Actually, considering the fact that Laura is moving through Puerto Rico now, the center getting close to the southern shores of the Dominican Republic, it's actually held up quite well. Now, the islands of Puerto Rico, particularly Hispaniola, and the western part of Cuba have pretty high mountains, and that tends to disrupt the circulation. There seems as if there's some kind of mid-level circulation that is sitting just south of Puerto Rico and moving westward. And of course, Puerto Rico getting lashed with heavy rains all day long, as well as the Virgin Islands. But the actual satellite structure here, considering the fact that it's dealing with all of this, is not too shabby. So the question with Laura is going to be how much interaction is going to occur with the center moving across the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the island of Hispaniola. What are the mountains going to do to this? And there are instances of storms that have been torn apart by those mountains. There have been other instances, depending on where the center is. If most of the circulation is over water, it will counteract the mountain interaction to an extent, and then it'll deal with it again over western Cuba. However, eastern Cuba is much flatter. So once it gets through western Cuba, then you'll probably see if there's any weakening, it will most likely level off. And then as it emerges out into the Gulf of Mexico on Monday, early on Monday, you'll start to see this should start to strengthen again. So we're going to take a look now at the intensity model spread with Laura. And with Laura, the intensity models all have gotten much more robust now. Once it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, you see them all slope upward. That's when it gets into the Gulf. And you actually there's only one model that really goes bonkers with this, that actually takes it up to a Category 4. There's one that takes it to a Category 3. There's a bunch of them that have it as a 1 or a 2. I think that's the most likely outcome at this point. I think there's too many variables going on with the upper air to make me want to go beyond a category 1 or a category 2. I'm not saying that it couldn't get stronger. I suppose that there's the outside chance that it even could strengthen up to a major before landfall, but I want to sort of take a step back here and wait to see what happens as it crosses all those mountains and crosses the islands. Because if the core is disrupted to a large extent, it may have to spend a lot of time doing essentially a repair job when it's in the Gulf of Mexico, so that it may never really have it'll never have the time to really get going to develop into something beyond a minimal hurricane. So big variables here, obviously. And with respect to the forecast tracks, now here too, we've seen here a gradual shift. While Marco has shifted to the right, Laura has kind of shifted a little bit to the left, and there is a wide spread. Now, these were yesterday's, were concentrated from the westernmost track was in southeast Texas to about Galveston, the easternmost track into the Florida Panhandle. And when we look at today's, 24 hours later, there's one stray model that takes it to Brownsville. But if we discount the southernmost model, the one that is furthest west is now east of Brownsville, almost to the Louisiana state line. The one that is furthest east is still on the westernmost part of the Florida Panhandle, and the rest of them are concentrated over the state of Louisiana, west of New Orleans. That's where most of the plots are. But here you have Laura, and this comparison, we'll take a look again at Marco. Marco coming in almost from the southeast into southeast Louisiana, which, by the way, is probably the way that is one of the ways that you don't want to see a hurricane come into southeast Louisiana is from the southeast. That creates a storm surge problem in Lake Pontchartrain. It creates a storm surge problem for the Mississippi coast, and of course also for southeast Louisiana, as opposed to when you get something that comes up, say, from the southwest. So this is a little concerning. And then, of course, as I said, this is Marco, and then we can take a look at Laura's tracks, and you can they kind of, there's a real chance here that you could have a landfall virtually. Both systems could landfall in almost the same spot. With a break time of about 48 hours in between. All right, so we've gone through all the model stuff. Now, the Hurricane Center's forecast track officially, and we have tropical storm warnings up still for Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, the Dominican Republic, the south coast of Haiti. You see their track actually takes it right over the entire island of Hispaniola the long way, and right over almost the whole island of Cuba the long way, emerging into the Gulf of Mexico sometime on Monday, and then making landfall sometime early Wednesday afternoon along the south coast of Louisiana, a little bit further to the west, a shade further west than where they have the landfall with Marco. It's hard enough to talk about one system that's impacting somewhere. This is really difficult talking about two storms at the same time. All right, so the new GFS. Well, we're going to jump back and forth on models going left and right. So I don't think we're going to really get too much out of this in terms anything conclusive here. I'm just going to show you what the models are doing. Marco is on the bottom of the screen. The time frame here. This is Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and it moves northwestward, and you can see that the GFS slows it down and then hooks it to the left early Monday morning, and then brings it to the Louisiana coast. It really slows it down and weakens it quite a bit before landfall. Now, if this happens, this would be very good news for southeast Louisiana. Rain is still going to be a problem, but if it turns to the left like this, it's going to run into that strong upper air shear, and I think that's what the GFS is indicating here at this point. Now, Laura comes on the scene Monday afternoon, moving off the north coast of Cuba, and out into the open waters, and you'll see that the pressure actually drops from 1,000 millibars to 997 millibars, and then to 992, 986, 979, moving northwestward, right toward the coast, the Southeast Louisiana coast. At this point, I believe that's a 967. So the GFS has a Category 2 hurricane here, and then it kind of keeps it there in the upper 960s. It actually gets it down to 959, making landfall further west than what the official Hurricane Center forecast is. And this is going to be this is Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. and then going inland. And now, while this is all going on, I want to point out for the folks in the Northeast and in the northern mid-Atlantic states, because we've already had 2 tropical storms that we've had to deal with. We have a cold front that's going to be approaching on Tuesday, and it's a rather robust cold front at that, that is going to be coming through. And it's not, hold on, I got to make my lines just a little bit bigger here. There we go. So there's our cold front. We have very steamy conditions that have developed today. They're going to continue for tomorrow and for Monday. There's chance for some scattered storms. Temperatures in the upper 80s to around or just over 90 will be the highs, and that'll last into Tuesday until this cold front passes. Now, this front is due to a deep trough that's going to be dropping into eastern Canada. And this front is, you can tell it's a strong front because there's a lot of isobars here that come down from Canada, this sort of V shape that you see like this. That is a signature that you do have a strong front and a high building in from the north. The flow across the U.S., across the eastern part of the U.S., is going to be northwesterly, okay? And that is a brick wall. That northwest flow is a brick wall. This is going to have a very tough time once it goes inland. This is not going to be something that rides up to the northeast and goes up the coast this way, I believe, as an intact system. Perhaps the moisture from this may wind up getting entrained with another cold front. But in terms of anything of consequence, in terms of anything regarding what we experienced with tropical storms Faye and Isaias, that is not going to happen. That front's going to bring some humidity relief to the northeast for Wednesday and into Thursday. And you'll see if you follow at least this run of the GFS, takes it up into the low into Arkansas, Missouri, and then eventually there's another low moving across the Great Lakes. So it'll get all absorbed with this. This is at the end of next week, and there'll be another strong cold front coming through here next Saturday with some showers and storms. And behind that comes a shot of nice cool air from Canada, if this verifies, for next Sunday and next Monday. And it looks like it even holds on beyond that through the first week of September. That's a nice juicy high coming down. This would be a nice cool shot of air to finish off the last couple of days of August and begin the first few days of the month of September. So that's at least, the long range has been kind of hinting at that for the past several days. So we'll see if we hold on to this idea. The upper air, now here, what I'm showing you here on this upper air map from the GFS, this is Monday morning. What we're looking at is way up in the atmosphere at 200 millibars. This is a very important level. This is up at about 30,000 feet. This is a very important level when you deal with tropical storms and hurricanes, because with tropical systems, the higher up you go, the systems are very, very intense at the ground level and very shallow as you move higher. That's the reverse of non-tropical storms, which tend to be more intense as you go up into the atmosphere, relatively speaking. If you have a strong coastal storm, say in the wintertime, then you got probably a powerhouse system up in the upper atmosphere. But what we look for with tropical systems, you want to see them underneath or close to an upper high. And the L's that you're seeing here are the actual surface lows that represent the tropical system. The one over Cuba is, of course, Laura. The one southeast of Louisiana is Marco. And here's that deep trough that I'm talking about. I'll change the color so we can see this a bit better, and maybe that go to a little darker blue, and hopefully that will will work. Yep, there it is. Okay, so let me clean this up for you on the map. And so here's that deep trough that I'm talking about right here. And we're talking about winds in the mid and higher levels of the atmosphere that are at about 30, 40, and 50 knots. Tropical systems do not like that. That creates wind shear conditions, and they tend to rip tropical systems apart. If we assume that the trough position is correct, if Marco were to track further to the west, more into the body of this trough, it's going to wind up getting sheared apart. And that's one of the reasons why you saw the models weaken it. But if the system is further to the east, just a little bit further to the east, it does have an upper air anticyclone or high over it. And that's right here. So it's kind of in a tenuous spot here. If the shift is further to the east, conditions will be less unfavorable. It's far more likely for it to be a stronger system once it makes landfall if it stays for a little bit further to the east and away from the strongest part of this upper trough. In the meantime, if you look at Laura, it's sitting underneath a nice upper high, rather light winds, almost very little wind shear, and it holds that upper high in its track going into the Gulf of Mexico. And that's the reason why the models are much more aggressive. I also don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of impact. Marco is not going to have a whole lot of impact on Laura's strength. Being that Marco is a small system, I was thinking this afternoon that perhaps there might be a little bit of upwelling of the water in the Gulf of Mexico and cooling the water just a little bit, but it's not really spending a whole lot of time sitting there in the eastern Gulf. It's moving right along. So I think the impact from upwelling is going to be rather minimal. Even if it were to knock the water temperatures down by 3 or 4 degrees, you're talking about water temperatures that are up in the upper 80s, getting knocked down to the middle 80s. I don't think that's going to have a material impact in terms of the strength of the system. Now here's how the systems are reacting to the driver in all of this, and that is this upper high that we've been watching off the southeast coast of the U.S. and back to Florida. It's really the strength of that upper high and the subtleties of that upper high that have caused these systems to be a little bit further jogging a little bit further to the north or a little bit further to the south. It's going to jump back down to the first frame of this loop. Those dark spots you see, the dark spot that starts over Puerto Rico is Laura. The one that starts in the Yucatan Channel, that's Marco. And you see how the upper high, it's off the southeast coast. It's strong, kind of weakens a little bit, then strengthens again and starts to build back westward. That's what drives Laura northwestward toward Louisiana. This is just so odd. And also on the upper right, you see that brick wall that I was talking about, that trough, the bottom part of that trough dropping into New England and down into the mid-Atlantic states. You have northwest winds in the upper atmosphere down into North Carolina. That is not an upper air setup that is conducive for systems to come up here. You need to have some kind of a trough set up to the west, and you just don't have it. So this is a perfect setup for a Gulf of Mexico storms, and they are playing according to plan. Again, all being steered by the upper high. The deep trough that's in the higher levels of the atmosphere in the western part of the Gulf of Mexico is going to play a big role regarding the strength of this. And this is how it looks. I preloaded this so this way you can see it. Marco coming out when was sitting in the Caribbean today. Light wind shear. You see the strong southwest winds that are up in the covering the Gulf of Mexico to its northwest. That shear tries to pull back westward as Marco pushes toward it, and it's just kind of on the edge of that shear as it moves inland. Laura, meanwhile, you see that the Laura coming off of Cuba. Marco at this point is just about gone. So the upper air conditions now, that deep trough in the Gulf of Mexico retreats back westward into West Texas, and you have a rather robust looking scenario here. Laura's sitting right underneath an upper high, uh, much less in the way of wind shear in the upper atmosphere. It's a complete change from where you started off, which is a rather hostile condition in the Gulf of Mexico for strengthening, uh, which retreats back westward. And then as Marcos plays out it whatever it does, you suddenly get that whole trough. The upper trough in the high levels of the atmosphere actually retrogrades back westward and goes into West Texas, and that sets up very favorable conditions for strengthening for Laura, which is why the GFS did what it did in terms of strengthening this. I have up here what you're looking at, by the way, the surface I showed you before. That was the new GFS. This is the GFS run from earlier today. I preloaded it so we wouldn't have to sit here and watch the maps load up and down. So the bottom, the takeaway that I have with all of this, and I'm going to move this out of the way so I can get back to being in the middle of the picture here. There we go. I even put on a nice shirt for the occasion today. I wanted to look good for the live stream. Hang on one second, and I'm going to also come back. Joe apparently, I guess, wasn't able to come on tonight because I haven't seen him here. So I think there's still a lot of balls that have to be juggled with regards to where all of this is going to go and how this is all going to wind up. And could there wind up being two hurricanes, double hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico making landfall in virtually the same spot 48 hours apart? Yes, I think that is possible. It's also a possibility that Marco could wind up dealing with that shear, and maybe it'll weaken a bit as it approaches land. I think that is possible as well. And Laura, on the other hand, uh, the mountainous terrain of Hispaniola and Cuba, will it have a big impact on the core so that the core will have a difficult time strengthening, even though conditions in the Gulf will be very favorable for it to strengthen? That is a big question. If the core holds together and it gets into the Gulf of Mexico with the upper air conditions the way they're setting up, could we wind up with something that is more than just a strong tropical storm or a minimal hurricane? Could it get to a 2? Could it even get to a 3? I think that it's possible. And I think that that's something that we're going to just need to wait till tomorrow or Monday. Once it comes, once we see it over Cuba to see what they're experiencing, the satellite structure. If you see it move when it moves over the island of Hispaniola in Cuba, if the satellite signature looks like it's remained pretty much intact, that'll be a sign that the system is probably going to intensify quickly once it gets back into the Gulf. Now I'm going to bring up. I'm going to see. Let's check out the aircraft recon. I'm going to see what's going on. All right, we do have a plane en route to Laura at the moment. It is getting close. I'm just going to see some of the observations. It's still early, so on the observations that are also, by the way, available on Tropical Tidbits if you go to Aircraft Recon. Plane's not quite there in the center yet, but you can see that the winds here, the box on the upper left, flight level winds, and the box on the upper right is the shows wind speed and rain rate at the 10-meter surface wind. So they're seeing winds up to about 35 knots for where the plane is at, but the plane is not quite at the center. The pressure is, just want to see if they've got the pressure. Actually, that blue is the flight level wind and red is the sea level pressure. So we don't have any sea level pressure plots yet from this. So I'm going to now take a look at Marco, see if we have a new mission into Marco. And we'll let that load. Mission 6 into Marco. It is in the storm now, so let's take a look at this. And we do have the recon there. All right, I want to just see where it is on the plot. So hang on one second. All right, so it looks like it's close to the plane has already made its first pass from the northwest into the center. Experienced 50 to 55 knot winds when it moved away from the center. Is where you see these light winds just north of the 22-degree north line. That's where about the center is, at about 22 and around 86 west. So it made a completely clear pass through the Yucatan Channel without touching any land. So some 50 to 55 knot wind barbs. Now we'll have to see when the plane comes up and around, and what kind of winds it finds on the north side. So it certainly is. There's probably at the very least little change in strength from the previous mission, at least from so far, and the pressure. The plane, I guess, when it made its first center pass. This was about maybe 25 minutes ago. The pressure was at around 995 or just above 995 millibars. So it doesn't look like the pressure has changed all that much. So usually when they go through these things, they'll find different pressures. If they come back, when they make this turnaround and they make another pass into the center after it's moved, they might get a different measure as far as the pressure is concerned. We do have Joe Rayo joining us. He is coming on board right now. Mr. Rayo, I know you had a lot of stuff to do today, so I'm glad you were able to jump in. We kind of went through everything. I'll just give you a quick recap on my feelings on this. It's having looked at weather maps, a lot of maps and models and everything else, and just watching these systems. Truly a fascinating situation here regarding the fact that we've got these two tropical systems that we could wind up possibly having two landfalling hurricanes on the Gulf Coast 48 hours apart. Maybe one will be a hurricane, maybe one will be a tropical storm. I think, and that there's still a lot of variables with regards to Marco. Is it going to get involved with that wind shear? And when Laura gets into the Gulf, the upper air winds, the upper air conditions are going to be pretty favorable for it to strengthen. I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, on all of this.
Actually, I've been looking more toward our local weather as opposed to the hurricane threat. I mean, obviously, we're hoping that the best will be the people down in Louisiana, especially, are going to take precautions. For our area, though, I noticed, Joe, that I'm not sure if you touched upon it yet, that we're in the day 4 zone for possible severe weather. That's Tuesday. Not often that we see the folks at Storm Prediction Center stick their neck out beyond 3 days, but we're in day 4. It looks like there could be a rather robust cold front moving in and possibly providing strong to severe activity here for Tuesday. Also, I've been looking at the smoke. Now, I know everybody's hearing about the fires out west, but believe it or not, if you take a look, and I just put it up on the chat board from clearsky.com, there is a map that shows you where all the smoke is. And believe it or not, one arm of that smoke plume from all the way out west.
I'm going to bring it up. Clearsky.com.
Right, all the way into our area, believe it or not. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of smoke being indicated across, I think, the western third or the western quarter of the United States, with all the forest and wildfires that are going on out there. But so much of it, and so thick is it, that and being blown along by the upper level winds, that even here, although it didn't exactly appear like a hazy day today, but according to that map, some of the smoke has even begun to reach as far east as our area as well. And I think, I think that next couple of days is going to be sultry, warm, and upper 80s, low 90s, moderate levels of humidity. Maybe a thunderstorm tomorrow, maybe a thunderstorm on Monday. A better chance during the latter part of the day on Tuesday with that sharp cold front. And then later on in the week, I think it's Marco. I've only had a chance to look at this briefly,
it's
but
Laura.
I think that's the storm that may arc up into the Midwest.
That's Laura.
That's Laura.
That's Laura.
Okay, so Laura arcs up into the Midwest, then latches on to another front, and then that system passes on by to our north, maybe sweeps another round of possible severe weather through here on Friday of next week, and then hopefully behind that we'll get into a more prolonged period of dry and pleasant weather as we move into next weekend.
By
But
the way, everybody seems to be going on clearsky.com because I can't get into it.
okay,
CLEARSKY, correct? Clear Sky, one word.
right. Well, I sent the link over so that I put it on the chat board so that everybody could see it. I could do it again if you want to.
No,
I
I
could,
mean I'm trying to get into the site and it says the site cannot be reached. Clearsky.com, right?
yeah, clearsky.com/alert/NOAA smoke, um,
Slash
and
alert.
and that provides uh, that would provide you with
There must be a lot of people getting in there because I can't seem to get it. One of the Just go back to the severe weather thing for Tuesday. I did point out that cold front was important because of the fact that it's part of the northwest flow that's going to protect us really from either of these systems. Even if Laura gets involved with the front late next week, just gets absorbed. It's nothing like what we saw obviously with Faye and with Isaias, but with this front on Tuesday, it's one of those fronts, and you've spoken about this. I pointed out how the isobars have that sort of V shape to them uh, uh, approaching the front. Maybe you explain that a little bit in terms of what that means when you have such a sharp change of wind when you have the front with the V-shaped isobars.
and those kind of frontal zones, the ones that come down from almost due north or northwest directions, are the ones that really are the ones that provide us with the best chance or the best shot for. That's why they have on day 4 they have virtually the entire Northeast. And it's not going to be one of these situations where we have a thunderstorm, let's say in Sussex County, New Jersey, then moving south and eastward, and that there may be some diminishing of strength as it approaches, let's say the marine layer. There isn't going to be any kind of marine layer to knock
Oh
the
no,
energy
not at
down.
all, not at all.
So
I just brought the map up, and we've said many times when SPC puts something in the day 4 to day 8 time frame, it's a pay attention moment.
correct. Correct. And I think Tuesday will be an interesting day, especially depending upon how fast the front moves. If it comes in, let's say late afternoon or early evening, that's when the diurnal heating will be at its worst or best, depending upon your viewpoint. And that's when we may be dealt some rather serious thunderstorm activity. And I find that interesting because, you know, on Tuesday, everybody will be talking weather-wise about what's going on in the Gulf states, and meanwhile, we ourselves may be having our own fare thee well, so to speak, with these thunderstorms later Tuesday and Tuesday night. And you just know, Joe, that most of the uninitiated, I'm not talking about any of the 131 people who are online right now on this site, but if we do get some heavy hitting thunderstorms here later Tuesday and Tuesday night, the one thing that people are going to be saying or asking late Tuesday night and Wednesday was that caused by one of the hurricanes? And of
Right.
course, it has absolutely nothing to do with any of the hurricanes. It's our own little, problem that we'll have from a rather robust cold front.
So Mike Talley asking the question referring to severe weather on Wednesday. No, it's Tuesday. Tuesday would be the severe weather day with that weather front. I did note. I really didn't look too close at the long range, other than to see the fact that um, this busy jet from Canada is going to continue going into the month of September. And that means cold fronts coming through every 3 days or so, and some nice shots of dry air and lower humidity. We're going to get a little bit of that, I think, on Wednesday and Thursday. You're going to get a short break in the humidity behind the first front. Then it goes up on Friday with the next front, and of course, that's going to be with a fairly robust low that moves up with another chance for thunderstorms late in the week. And there's a nice high that comes down behind that. And I think there's one more that comes down early next week, early the week after, going into the first days of September. There's a reinforcement, another shortwave trough that swings down in that northwest flow and just kind of reinforces the cool, dry air into the first days of September. We keep our fingers crossed on that. It'd be a good thing. It's been a long time since we've gone into the month of September with a solid shot of cool, dry air. We've gotten used to these Septembers that have just been an extension of the summer season.
Hard to believe that next weekend will be the penultimate weekend of summer, so to speak, because the weekend after that, or the weekend after next, will be, believe it or not, the Labor Day weekend, and then summer, I guess, from an unofficial sense, is over. And it really flew on by, especially when most of us really didn't have a chance to go anywhere thanks to the COVID-19 scenario. And let's hope that it'll be a different story next summer.
Bobby Livingsworth, we did address that derecho last week, that the destructive derecho that moved through parts of the the Midwest. That was another in a series of wicked weather events that have come into play for 2020. Somebody pointing out to me, I thought was the few people. Maybe you could answer this because I've seen it. I really didn't read the piece. I didn't even know whether it was clickbait or not, so I didn't bother. But I've seen stories running around about an asteroid in November hitting the Earth.
Well,
and the theme of the article is what should we do? What should you do about it? How do you prepare for it? I didn't even read it. I saw that and I ignored it.
I've heard about it. There are, 50 years ago, we used to think that an asteroid that, comes within, let's say, 1,000,000 miles of the Earth was an exceptional situation. Now we know that we're really in a celestial shooting gallery that once or twice a month we'll get an asteroid that tumbles past us. And we're trying to find as many as we possibly can to be aware of them in advance. I have not had a chance really to look at this November scenario, but I suspect that it's going to be another one, just another one of these that happens to be tumbling by maybe a few 100,000 miles past us. And let's put it this way, Joe. If there was a scenario where there was one that was most definitely going to hit the Earth, I do believe that you would probably be hearing about that at the top of the newscast, because that would certainly be a major problem for this planet of ours. The fact that it's being posted on some websites and it's almost like a rumor more than anything else. Yeah, maybe we'll have a close call, or maybe it'll come close to us in November, but I doubt very much that we're going to have to worry about any kind of a collision. Usually these things, when they collide with the Earth, we don't have such a long lead time.
Right.
We usually find out about these things like 2 to 3 days in advance, and like by then, if there really was such a threat, there's nothing really we could do about it. So
right. David Schwartz making the analogy. This is a Sherry Lewis and lamb chop type of year, 2020. This is the year that doesn't end. It just goes on and on, my friend. That's quite true. I used to use that song when I worked over at News 12. It was the show that doesn't end.
It is the year that doesn't. It's an eccentric year, a crazy year so far. Now, the saddest thing I think I heard about today, Joe, was the fact that California is now asking for aid from not just this country or asking for help from Washington. They've now actually requested aid from 2 other countries, from Canada and Australia.
That's a political stunt.
Has it?
That's just politics. That's a political stunt.
Well, I don't know, but why is it that all these fire chiefs, they always look the same? Gray hair, little white mustache. They always they like cut out of the same mold. And this one fire chief in California just shaking his head and saying, I don't know what to do. We need more equipment, and we don't seem to. We put in the request, we don't have it. It's just between that, the hurricanes, maybe our thunderstorms on Tuesday or whatever. Who knows? Maybe the asteroid will hit in November.
Right.
Maybe it'll put us all out of our misery.
All right, I'm going to give one last check to the Hurricane Center. It's a little early, just to see if the 8 o'clock, sometimes they send them out 10 minutes early, sometimes they don't. Yes, they did. Okay, so at 8 o'clock, Laura is at 18.1 north, 68.7 west. Top winds are 50 miles an hour, and the lowest pressure is 1,004 millibars. Uh, Marco is at 22.3 north. Whoops, I hit the click button. Hang on. Marco is at 22.3 north, 86 west, moving north northwest at 13. Lowest pressure there, 994 millibars, or top winds are 65 miles an hour. I do have my WPCs. It's kind of hard because I showed everybody the map of the rainfalls of 5 to 10 inches between both tropical systems. So WPC kind of breaks it down a little bit here on their maps. So they've got basically Marco giving like 1 to 3, 2 to 4, with some 4 to 6 inch amounts in a few isolated spots in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and into Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. They don't have a rainfall estimate yet for Laura, but I think it's pretty fair that between the two systems, it's possible that somebody could wind up with a foot of rain out of this.
It is. It's possible. I just had an idea, Joe. Since you're having trouble, I'm going to turn the camera around,
All right,
and
you ain't.
maybe you can see this if I can get this stupid camera to work. Can you see that?
I do. I do see it.
That's the map showing the smoke across the country in
Let me
various
try. I'm going to try
gradations.
again to see if I can get this.
But I mean, like you could see from my viewpoint here that the really thick smoke covers much of the northern central Great Plains, of course, California. But there's that one little extension that extends all the way out across the Great Lakes and right on into our part of the country as well. Again, the smoke is probably very thin and a very high level of the atmosphere, so it's not really readily noticeable. It'd be interesting to see if in the nights to come, the sunsets and sunrises are unusually vivid because of this smoke. But it just goes to show you, look at the entire, area, the breadth of this smoke from all of those fires out in California. Just absolutely incredible to me. And that's what's going on right now in terms of the fire activity and its associated effects, not only in California but also across a broad area of the United States.
All right. I googled clearsky.com, and I'm getting. Hang on. Clear Sky. Clearsky.com. I'm going to try to see if I can pull this map up once and for all. Okay, because there's a site called there's a different site. There's one was clear-sky.com. Then there's cleardarksky.com.
Is there any way that you can just simply take what I posted on the site, on the board here, just make copy that, and then just go to Safari or from Google or whatever like that. And just put that in and
Well, just read me the it's clear sky one word.com. There's no dashes, nothing.
www.cleardarksky.com.
Okay, clear dark sky. Okay.
/ alerts with an S / NOAA
right
_ smoke _ map.jpg.
Yeah, because your link doesn't show up on the chat board. Not map.jpg. There it is. I got it. All right. This is what it looks like, everybody. So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge area. And, yeah, you see the extension there that goes across the Great Lakes, as Joe pointed out, into parts of the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic states. That's huge, Joe. You got smoke going from Mexico all the way up into southern Canada, covering all of the West. We're also getting some high level moisture from that's shooting up from Marco. Some of the high clouds that have come up through the southeastern part of the United States and have moved and has moved up the eastern seaboard. I'm going to bookmark this for future reference, so we can take a look at it tomorrow.
1950, there was in September of 1950, there was a tremendous forest fire activity over in Western Canada. And the smoke that blew across the continent into our area caused both the sun and the moon to appear blue because of the
Nice.
effect of that high level. So I'm not sure, I'm not, an optical scientist in the sense that I could tell you what all this would cause. I'm just assuming that in the days to come, we may be seeing, vivid sunsets and sunrises, or maybe even blue suns or blue moons or whatever. I don't know, but it certainly is interesting that you could see the expansion and the extent of all of this smoke from all of that activity out in California. So what do we have, Joe? We have the smoke from the forest fires. We have not one but two hurricanes about to make landfall this week in the Gulf, and the potential of severe weather locally here on Tuesday and possibly again on Friday. What an action-packed week we have in front of us.
Blizzard in November.
Yeah.
Write it down. If there's ever a year where it's going to happen, it's going to happen, and it'll happen on the coast, which would even be a bigger accomplishment.
It'll happen on election day.
Yeah.
And we had in 2012. Let me remind a lot of folks, we had the day after election day, we had a big snowstorm.
Right, that was post Sandy, yes.
Right, just a short while after Sandy, we had our first major snowfall, and it came. I remember I had to stay till like 2:00 in the morning at News 12 because we were doing election night coverage, and I said to myself, "Oh God!" On top of everything else, now I'm worn down to a frazzle, and now I have to come in early tomorrow because we're going to be in the midst of our first major.
I had a couple of inches out of that, and Nassau County had 6 to 9 inches. In fact, they had to close a lot of the schools. They had to close my kids' school for an extra week because they had 9 inches of heavy wet snow in parts of Huntington on Long Island, and because all the crews were out working to restore power. They were still out there restoring power from Sandy. They didn't have anybody around to move the heavy wet snow. They had to literally wait for it to melt, which it did, obviously, but it delayed the schools for almost another week.
We'll see what happens this year. That's all I'm going to say.
So tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock is the Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, so be sure to tune in for that. We will see you tomorrow. It's not often that you and I get on a Saturday night, but hey, we've got hashtag double hurricanes possible.
I have to tell you, I did a lot of things today, and I came in, and Renata told me that you've been flagging me, and I might have been able to get on at 7 o'clock, but I had to lie down.
No, I get it. No, listen, I hope you weren't waiting too long. I have a second monitor behind my computer, and I can't see the whole monitor. So I actually should mount this on the wall, but so I have to occasionally kind of look over the top of my laptop like that to see whether you come up. A little thing comes up and says Joe's in the waiting room waiting. So hopefully you weren't spending too much time in the waiting room.
No, in fact, I was watching you, for the few minutes that I was waiting, and I felt bad because I said, well, he must have been relying that I was gonna come on tonight because you had the Joe and Joe backdrop behind
I said at the beginning that you had things to do today, and that that the chat door was open. So when you were ready, if you were able to come on, you were going to come on. So I'm glad you did.
Here I am.
Now go drink some liquor and get a good night's sleep, and we'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern time.
We'll be there.
All right. So take care, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend so far, and hope the second